morning and welcome. My name is Rebecca Wojtkowski and I'm the Kids Count Policy Director here at New Futures. I'm thrilled to be here today in this space to celebrate, offer gratitude, and look with hope toward the future for kids and families in New Hampshire. New Hampshire recently ranked the #1 state for overall child well-being by the Annie E. Casey Kids Count Data Report, as compared to the rest of the nation. This is without a doubt a good thing for our state. However, a national comparison alone does not mean that the work is done. The data book reports that in 2020 to 2021, 14% of children in New Hampshire, aged birth through 5, lived in families in which someone had to quit, change, or refuse a job because of problems with childcare. And women are 5 to 8 times more likely than men to experience negative employment consequences related to caregiving. Even as a top-ranking state, Kids Count data shows New Hampshire families struggle with not only barriers to access to childcare, but housing, food security, mental health supports, and also the reality that vast regional differences exist with regard to access to services for kids and families. We collectively have a duty to ensure all children have a strong foundation and their families have access to the supports they need. And it is clear that our bipartisan leaders recognize that duty this session. You will hear today from our legislative champions, advocates, a New Hampshire mom, and the Council for Thriving Children about key investments and policy changes that were achieved this year and what that means for families and children in our state. Before I turn it over to our legislative leaders and advocates, I want to note that we are standing here in front of this bright and beautiful mural. The picture behind us is not only art, but it's the testimony of New Hampshire's youngest citizens urging lawmakers to fund childcare in the budget. Over 1,200 children submitted their art to our budget leaders this session. Their voices are important. It's a powerful moment to witness our smallest citizens working alongside a coalition of strong advocates and leaders. It's even more incredible when that work leads to impactful change and bipartisan investments in not only childcare, but in many programs that support moms, dads, children, and whole families to be healthy, thriving, and well. With that, I'm honored to welcome up Senator Becky Whitley and Senator Denise Ricciardi to discuss the historic investments made this session.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you everyone for being here. My name is Becky Whitley. I'm honored to serve New Hampshire Senate District 15 and be the prime sponsor of Senate Bill 237, the Child Care for New Hampshire Working Families Act, and SB 175, which we affectionately call the New Hampshire Momnibus. As a working parent myself, I know that New Hampshire's child care system is in crisis right now, and families are struggling to balance competing obligations, rising costs, and other challenges. The child care crisis in particular is leaving our families without access to affordable care and leaving businesses with employees who aren't able to remain in the workforce. That means that the child care crisis isn't an individual problem for families to solve, it's an economic one that requires us all to come to the table for solutions. There is no one solution to this crisis. However, the work this session was done in collaboration with numerous stakeholders to address the most pressing needs. Because of this collaboration, during the 2023 session, the New Hampshire legislature made historic investments in childcare through the inclusion of SB 237 in the biennial state budget. This resulted in key investments and critical policy changes to mitigate and improve the childcare crisis in New Hampshire by directing a staggering $60.5 million in the state budget to support working families. That includes $15 million in state funds to support the child care workforce and over $45.5 million through a mix of federal and state funds to fund critical changes at New Hampshire's child care scholarship program, such as enrollment-based billing, increased provider reimbursement, and broader income eligibility and cost sharing. These investments will go far to increase access to quality and affordable childcare, allowing many parents to return to the workforce. But still, childcare access and costs remain a great challenge to many families. Across New Hampshire, more than 40 childcare centers have closed their doors in recent years, eliminating nearly 1,500 slots for children and adding to the growing demand for availability. I also want to mention this year's biennial state budget also included our bill, Senate Bill 175, the New Hampshire Omnibus, of which Senator Ricciardi was a key co-sponsor and co-conspirator in the Senate. This bill was a comprehensive legislative package to improve maternal and infant health outcomes, expand access to coverage and care, address maternal health inequities, and increase access to a broader array of services and providers for our moms. Not only would the New Hampshire Omnibus improve the health of New Hampshire moms and babies, it will also help our moms get back into the workforce after childbirth if they choose, which is increasingly important as New Hampshire continues to experience a workforce crisis. When we invest in systems that strengthen families and support children's social and emotional development, we not only create an environment for kids to flourish, we also create an environment for our economy to thrive and create the building blocks for a stronger future for our beloved state. I want to say thank you to my fellow legislators who came together in a bipartisan way to secure these investments, and also to the families, the advocates, and providers who came to the State House to make this happen. And now I want to turn it over to my friend, Senator Denise Ricciardi.
Thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Denise Ricciardi. I'm the state senator for District 9, and it truly is an honor to be here with all of you this morning. You know, when I came to the New Hampshire Senate, for me, it was about doing the best that we can, not about political parties. It's about thinking about all of our families across New Hampshire and doing what's best for them. And that is why I am so proud to have been a co-sponsor of Senate Bill 175, as we so affectionately call the Omnibus Bill. It was time for our legislature to act on doing something for moms and babies and families. And we were able to pass this bill and deliver results. And that's what it's about, delivering results. The Omnibus Bill will extend Medicaid services from 2 months postpartum for moms to a year, which is really, truly amazing. And there will also include many other services that moms need: lactation services, doula services, and even a donor milk bank. What I can say about Omnibus Bill is that it was very much needed, and we still have more work to do, but it is so pro-mom, pro-baby, pro-family, pro-workforce, and pro-economy. And I'm grateful for our colleagues in the Senate that we could pass this unanimously. It's a great day to celebrate. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Lindsay Hansen. I'm the Senior Director for State and Electoral Campaigns with Save the Children Action Network. I want to start out by saying thank you. Thank you to the two remarkable senators to my left and right for showing up for kids in a big way during this session. Without your leadership and continued conversation with others in your respective caucuses that kept the issue front and center, these victories for New Hampshire kids and families would not have been possible. I also want to thank the advocates and child care providers who showed up over and over again. They attended hearings, they met with lawmakers, they wrote letters to the editor, and they told their compelling stories of how the lack of access to quality, affordable child care has affected their lives and the lives of people in their community. I want to thank the New Hampshire Child Care Coalition and specifically call out New Futures for their leadership during this session. Save the Children Action Network believes that every child deserves a strong start in life. We build bipartisan support for issues facing children here in the Granite State and across the country. We worked in an amazing coalition, and together we organized lawmaker meetings, we provided testimony, our advocates sent thousands of messages to lawmakers, we published op-eds, we hosted a lobby day that brought together lawmakers with more than 100 of their constituents. And we launched a strategic digital campaign that reached over 15,000 people in and around the Capitol at key moments during the session. At SCAN, we're committed to building and mobilizing our grassroots base to to engage directly with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle until every child in the Granite State has access to high-quality and affordable childcare. While we've made great strides this year, we still have a lot to do. New Hampshire is still only one of 7 states that does not invest any dollars in pre-K. As stated in the new Kid Count report, the number of women who can't go back into the workforce due to unreliable childcare is on the rise. To talk more about access, I'd like to welcome Caitlin Loving to the podium to talk about her experience accessing childcare for her family.
Thank you for this opportunity to share my perspective as a New Hampshire working mother. I live in Manchester with my husband, my 4-year-old daughter, and my infant son. In a fun turn of events, my son is here with me today because he spiked a fever and isn't able to attend daycare today. I work full-time and so does my husband. Our daughter attends daycare in Manchester, and when I got pregnant with my second child last year, we told the teachers and asked about securing a spot for the baby. Our daughter has been there since she was 3 months old, and her teachers are like family now. They are a small center, and while they were excited for us, they would not have a spot available for an infant until sometime between April 2023 and August 2023, depending on different scenarios. In addition to the limited number of children they can take, they were also understaffed at the time. I'm happy to report that as of a few weeks ago, they are fully staffed after 8 months of searching. This is the second week that my infant son has been in daycare with my daughter. After I went back to work in early February, we were lucky that my husband was able to stay home with him for another 2 months. This brought us to April. To cover our childcare gap between April and June of this year, we hired a nanny and paid 4 times the amount we were paying for our daughter in daycare. Our nanny was wonderful and worth the expense, and I feel very fortunate that we could afford it. But I would be lying if I didn't say that the price tag made me catch my breath. And every week I thought of parents who would not have been able to incorporate this expense, even for the short term. I'm thrilled to have both kids in the same place for 2.5 months until my daughter heads to public kindergarten in the fall. I was lucky to find an after-school program right at her school, but I was trying to figure this out shortly after we had our nanny in place. I felt like I was playing whack-a-mole. As soon as I had one child care issue solved, another would pop up. Stories of child care woes abound in my social circle. I know one mother who is cobbling together care for her first grader so she can continue to work part-time this summer. I know another who had to quit her job a couple of months ago as she was not able to find high-quality care for her infant son. I also remember my own mother, who worked throughout my childhood, searching furiously to find childcare for my younger brother and I. It was always a concern and always a struggle, and it makes me so sad that not much has changed in a generation. I am continuously grateful for the generous leave policy of my husband's company, our stable financial situation, and our other privileges that have made these struggles seem so minor in comparison to the roadblocks that other families face. It also does not escape my notice that all of these situations are luck of the draw, and it is not fair that we have weathered these storms without huge detriment to our careers or finances, while others face continuous uphill battles. Raising a family in this modern era should not be reliant on the tenuous generosity of corporate leave policies, financial earnings, or anything else that depends on luck and circumstance to achieve. I cheered out loud when I learned of the investments in parents, children, and childcare that were passed in this recent budget season. I thank the legislators, New Futures, Save the Children Action Network, New Hampshire Together, Moms Rising, and the New Hampshire Council for Thriving Children for all of the work they have done to ensure that we are making New Hampshire a better place to raise a family. However, this has to be just the beginning. We need to continue to support parents if we want this state to thrive in terms of economics and communities. Parents cannot work if they do not have reliable childcare. Businesses and municipalities cannot function without working parents. The social and economic costs are too high to ignore. Childcare is a crucial infrastructure. We need to keep this momentum going in order to keep and attract families, as well as young people who would like to have families someday, especially with our aging population and workforce. I was born and raised in Manchester, and I have great pride in my city and my state. I am happy to live here and raise my own family here, but I also know there is more work to be done. Our child care providers, many of whom are parents themselves, are not paid enough, and this is part of the issue we face in finding quality child care. We need to pay them higher wages and invest more in early childhood education. We pay for public schools because we want to have an educated population. Research in the last several years shows that this education actually begins as early as infancy, and investing at this stage can save money at the public school level by providing an even playing field for all children from the beginning. There's a very high return on investment for early childhood education. This is also an issue that affects everyone, regardless of whether or not they have children. While my parents, who will be retiring next year, are concerned about quality childcare for the sake of their grandchildren, they are also looking at what social services will be available to them in their retirement years. These social services are funded by taxpayers, and without a large tax base, everyone loses out at every level. Without working parents, this tax base is severely reduced. I hope that for future parents in New Hampshire, in both the near future and for the kids in my life who may become parents one day, finding childcare and support for families is not the struggle or extreme expense that it is today. I would like to see us break the cycle that I saw in my childhood and that continues for me now. If my son and daughter start families one day, I would like to be able to say that I worked for and witnessed changes at the state level that make it much easier for them to raise their children in New Hampshire. Families come in so many shapes and sizes, but we all have families. I urge legislators to continue to invest in childcare and support for families, as it will pay huge dividends for New Hampshire's economic future, and the social return on investment will be exponential. Let's continue to work together to make New Hampshire a leader in supporting parents and children, growing our economy, and maintaining this beautiful state as a wonderful place to live. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Christina LaChance, and I staff the New Hampshire Council for Thriving Children. It is a governor-appointed council where we make recommendations to our wonderful state as well as our governor about prosperous and wonderful opportunities and policies, recommendations for children in the future. This last December, the council was able to publish their strategic plan, and I'm thrilled to say that with the investments that we are all hearing about today, many of those opportunities, many of the recommendations that the council made can now begin to be realized. As many others have said, we do have a long way to go. There are many, many investments still needed in our early childhood field, especially in our workforce, be it both from the state as well as our partners at the federal government level. But we are absolutely thrilled to see this kind of progress happening with such vigor and with so much support behind it. I am so grateful to our two senators who are here with us today for championing this work. I am so grateful to the entire legislative body for moving this forward, to the governor for signing the budget into effect, but most importantly, I would like to thank and say how appreciative I am for parents who advocated morning, noon, and night for these kinds of investments. Our advocacy community, New Futures and Save the Children and Moms Rising, so many people who were willing to stand shoulder to shoulder with parents. And most of all, I just love that 1,200 children created artwork to present to our legislature to really make sure people know that they're here. Our kids are our future. It sounds a little silly, but they are. These investments in their future is so important, not just for today, but for the future of our state, the future of working families, and the future of our state economy. So again, I want to say thank you to all of those who are involved, especially our parents and our children. This is a really, really great day for New Hampshire. Thank you.
Thank you all. And as you heard today, we are here to celebrate, but we're also here to bring all this momentum forward and into the future. So thank you very much, and we're happy to answer any questions if folks have questions, but appreciate you being here.
I had a question. Lindsay, you had mentioned there's more to do. What would be on that list? The top 5?
So I think collectively, as Christina LaChance said, we should look to the state strategic plan for early childhood to look at places where we need to make deeper investment and policy change. We also have to understand that these wonderful changes to child care scholarship
it's not the only policy lever we have, and it won't solve all the issues facing families in New Hampshire. As you heard from Caitlin, it's complex. So we need to look at how do we deepen access for families, how do we ensure that our childcare workforce is well compensated and supported. So there's a lot of work to do, building off of the investments that we have achieved this year.
I would also add that I think the coalition is working really hard together to strategically plan for next session, and I think a lot of different things are on the table, and as the implementation of all the things that happened this session are coming out, that'll really show us specifically really what needs to be done. But we're all bringing our ideas and our priorities to one table together.
So glad you asked that question because we had a bill this session to establish a pre-K pilot program. We are one of 6 or 7 states that does not have any state investment, general fund dollars going to pre-K. I think that is very problematic. So that means only wealthier families, frankly, have access to pre-K. So I had a bill this year with many others to establish a pre-K pilot program to target certain districts where we're seeing those inequities. It was retained, my version was retained in the Senate, and then an identical version sponsored by Mary Keith was retained in the House. So I'm hopeful that we'll come together in a bipartisan way to get that off the ground.
Senator, as you know, when this session started, mostly divided legislature, not a whole lot's going to get done, maybe be a continuing resolution. Why do you think this year all of this happened? What about this year made it possible for you to accomplish as much as you did on this issue?
Yeah, from my perspective, I think it was a combination of things. I think that right now, New Hampshire families are really struggling. We may see a booming economy, but it doesn't apply to all families. I think particularly lower income families are really struggling right now, and so it was a moral imperative, I think, to really address that. We also had an incredible amount of advocates and families who came to the State House. There was also investment in this advocacy strategy. And also divided government, I think, in this case, brought people to the table for solutions. I think even though, we were in the minority in the Senate, we all benefited from that divided government in the House. And I think people knew that we had to come together and find consensus on those issues that were really going to help people. I don't know if Senator Bouchardi had more to say on that.
Thanks, Senator.
I just would like to add that, to me, everything that Senator Whitley said is accurate, but I really believe that the policies that I enact by crossing the aisle and truly doing what's right for the people is happening here in Concord. And we have to be people who aren't trying to be right, but do what's right. And I think that's what happened with this passing of this very historic bipartisan budget. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator.
Some of these, this additional funding to support the child care workforce and kind of other ways to shore up the system as a whole, how long do you think that'll take to sort of percolate through and actually make like a real difference in terms of what's available?
We're hopeful that that'll be soon. I think the way in which the bill was structured doesn't require a lot of time and contracts, but allows the department the ability to utilize the dollars in combination with some existing federal dollars to support the workforce. And we will be advocating along the way that there isn't a long delay, but we're going to work in partnership and hope that it's pretty soon.
How big a problem is the low workforce availability in providing child care? How hard is it to hire people?
I am not an employer, but I can have others speak that we know the PIA was engaged in our work as a coalition partner and discussed a lot with regard to the inability of families, and particularly moms and caregivers. And Jen Legier is an employer. Probably could talk about it a little or afterwards. But it was an issue that employers began to see and try to connect with a larger community to understand why their parents could not have stable child care when they couldn't afford it. And I'll have Jen Legier come up and speak to this. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jen Legier and I own a place to grow in Brentwood. We have certainly struggled with the employee situation right now. It's it's affecting every child care center, finding qualified employees and staff, being able to pay them enough. So the workforce recruitment and retention piece of these bills, the $15 million that's coming to us, is strategic. Even as a well-funded private paying child care center, we have certainly had an ebb and flow of openings and closings of classrooms this year. We've had to let children go because we didn't have enough staff to cover classrooms. We've reduced work hours, in the morning and in the afternoon in order to make do with what we had. So it's really created a complex problem for both parents and families and centers. We want to do the right thing for our families. We're like, well, this is what we can do with what we have. So it's been really challenging. As much as we pay, our families pay for tuition right now, they deserve, their full hours that they're paying for and access to childcare, and we just don't have the ability to provide that in the current market right now. So we're all doing the best we can with the challenges that we're facing, but it's been a huge challenge.
I have a question for Senator Richard. You were I think you said the lone Republican co-sponsor on this bill, and what were those conversations like to get your colleagues from your party on board?
Well,
Senator, would you?
oh, sorry. Well, it takes really pointing out what we really need, and anybody who knows me knows that I've been labeled tenacious. I'm nice, but I'm tenacious. And it was a lot of conversations and a lot of work, but we also have a great Senate president in Senator Bradley, and he's always willing to listen, and I think that really just pushing the needle is how we got it done, and I plan to continue to do this work for our families, children, and helping with this workforce problem. So we're going to keep at it. Who knows? Maybe we'll have a mom on the bus too next time. Woo!
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you all.